Today we're going to finish the book of Daniel, and we're going to take a look at the second part of chapter 11 and all of 12. And I think you remember that we used verses 1 through 35 in part 1, and then we're going to look at verses 36 through 45 as part 2. Part 1, of course, dealt with Antiochus, the king from the north and the king from the south, and you saw the extensive charts that I performed from writers prior to my knowledge. And today I'm going to use John Phillips' outline of verses 36 through 45 for chapter 11, but also going to use John Phillips' chapter 12, which I love the way he ends it, because I feel very much an appreciation of what he wrote. In any case, in chapter 11, we're going to take a look at some interesting facets of Daniel, and we're going to be looking at the Antichrist. I think it's important for us to review that chart that I showed you earlier. And I've put a timeline on it this time so that you might better see what John Phillips was trying to say with this chart. If that wasn't enough time, remember you can go back on this video and stop it and then stare at that chart in pause mode and understand it better. But verse 36, royal pride. The Antichrist is arrogant. Verse 37, religious policy. The Antichrist seems like the Messiah to just about every faith that there is and seems to have it all together. Verse 38, the real purpose. His kingdom is of this world, and it's been given to him by Satan. What Jesus refused to take from Satan, the Antichrist will take. And then we come to his, verse 39, his ruthless powers. Even though his real purpose is to rule the world, he does it in a ruthless way, and he seems unstoppable. Verse 40, the first part of the verse, resisting powers. Those people in power in Syria and Egypt, or the representation of those areas, will resist him. In 40b through 43, that's 40b verse through 43 verse, is the revenge that he pursued against those powers that rose up against him. In verse 44, we see his rage, which is the Battle of Armageddon. In verse 45, we see his ruin predicted. That is, Jesus steps out, second coming of Christ. He, that is the Antichrist, the false prophets, are thrown into the lake of fire, and Jesus steps out to rule and reign. Chapter 12. Michael is active now with the military angels, helping Jesus take control of all things. And we find that the worst time for Israel is about to be unfolded, as predicted by Jeremiah 30, verse 7. The tribulation comes. The resurrection of the dead is a reminder of the promise that death is not the end for believers. And we see that many are saved in verse 3. We see that the time is sealed. And that's really important. I don't feel quite as bad when I say I can't interpret the time frames of Daniel or fully understand the prophecies of Daniel, because it's a sealed truth. And the reason is that we're not supposed to worry about it. It's going to come to pass. The words are sealed is the why, verse 9. What is verse 10? Well, you can either get into divine speculation or silly sensualization of this whole prophecy. I love how John Phillips ends his commentary on Daniel, and I'll tell you about that in just a minute. Finally, we have verse 13, which is Daniel is told not to worry about it. Go to your rest. Remember, Daniel's an old man. And Daniel's told, you're just going to head and pass out of this earthly life, but you'll rise again for your allotted portion at the end of the age. Now, that's not soul sleep. That is that Daniel's going to be able to rest, not worried about all of the powers and the kingdoms and the different uprisings and all of the battles that will go on. He's going to be able to just rest with God in heaven until the end of the age, when he'll have be given his allotted portion to rule and reign with him. Now, what does John Phillips say about this? He relates it to watching a ironsmith heating up a piece of steel and then hammering it with sparks flying everywhere. And yet he can't really do any major changes. And he said a lot of people have hammered away at the book of Daniel with divine speculation and sensationalization. The fact of the matter is, it's a sealed book. The final section of this end time prophecy is sealed. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful I don't have to try to understand it. I can do just what Daniel did. When my life is over, I can pass out of this world into the next and rest until God unfolds all of his final plans for mankind. Which brings me to my final thought for the day. Remember the application. 7 things that Christians need to know about Bible prophecy. Number 1, it's God's plan for man. Number 2, it's evidence that there is a God that is directing the events of this world. Number 3, most of the Bible is to be taken literally, but God never intended for us to understand it all. Number 4, there are and there will be false prophets and an antichrist. Number 5, it tells us of the urgency for evangelism because we don't know the hour of the day when the rapture will occur, or when the tribulation will occur, and when Jesus steps out to rule and reign this world. Number 6, that ought to stimulate your Christian growth. That ought to give you a desire to learn more about God and more about his ways, and to become more like Christ. Number 7, it provides a hope for the future. Yes, we may all in this generation pass out of this world and into the next in heaven. But God's plan, prophesied by Daniel, will play out. And maybe in heaven we'll understand all of the things that are sealed in the book of Daniel, those things that were revealed in the book of Revelation, and every symbolism that is there for God to show mankind that he had a plan from the beginning, and he will deliver his plan. And that's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.